I was fortunate to be one of the lead producers on the School of Greatness with Lewis House. And it was on that show that it really took me to the next level because I was able to learn how to run an eight-figure show. And I was doing everything. I was in the studio, shooting the photography, working on the guest prep, literally filming it, audio, transferring the footage, managing post-production, and really learning YouTube. And that was the biggest thing. Like I learned YouTube and helped grow their channel from it was getting like 1 million downloads a week to 15 million downloads a week in like a little bit less than a year. So I basically took that school of greatness and when I was around all these great people, I mean, obviously I'll be influenced by them as, an entrepreneur and a founder. And then I took that formula and built my company and really applied that to every show, big or small, and it helps all shows reach a level of success.
Well, welcome back to kind of a hybrid Sean Trade show for better media. We're gonna see where we go with this one, but I have an awesome guest with me today who's got a hell of a story. Can you introduce yourself and tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Mojo Jones. I go by Mojo, and I'm a podcast executive producer and founder and CEO of my company, Rainbow Creative. I've been doing podcasting for 6 years. Prior to that, I was a filmmaker and worked in corporate, and this is my life's work.
That's awesome, man. How did you get started down this path? What was it that got you going down a path of media and communications?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a kid, like my dad buying me a camera at 17 years old to make films. So that was like the first thing. And, I was making films in high school, and college and really did the film degree. So for me, like when I was going into film, I thought it would be like the fun like career
Mhm.
because you're just making art. But instead it's actually quite different. I learned how to fundraise at on my like sophomore film and really like learn about the business of it. So for me, I've just always been a creative person, but also have business acumen and a mindset. So for this, and I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So it's just really in me. So it's just really natural for me to have a dream to make a company. But when I was in college, I was focusing on, being a director with a three-picture deal, and that never happened. So I just kept going. I worked in corporate for a while, and it was actually in 2020 at the pandemic was when I shifted to podcasting. Now, Rainbow Creative has been podcasting for 6 years, but it's been around for eight. And the original concept of the company was to be a community of creators, of editors, DPs, and all these people where they can get content. Because what I found was that I had a lot of connections and I was a great connector, and everybody wanted me to produce something. And I was like, well, I can produce anything, but I can't do it all. What if there was a place where creatives could come together to do that? So that's how Rainbow Creative was founded. And we did a lot of videos, but one-off videos isn't sustainable. And I actually fell into podcasting. In 2020, I was working like at the pandemic doing BD for a company, and they said they wanted to do a podcast, and they said, "Can you produce it?" And I was like, "Sure, I can produce anything. I'll learn." And I did the show called The Brand Talks, where I was a producer and co-host, and just really learned from that. And from that experience, I literally just started posting it on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I got people coming to me. And fast forward to my first year on with a part-time like producing job, I was like, I'm not going back corporate. I'm gonna do part-time producing and focus on Rainbow and podcasts. Had like 10 shows, and then the second year I just kept doing it. And then the third year I didn't take a break from Rainbow, but just did less shows because I got two network opportunities. So I was able to work on the Red Table Talk podcast, Navigating Narcissism, as a showrunner on that show for 2 seasons. And it's an iconic show with Red Table Talk and produced by Red Table Talk podcast with Dr. Ramani. And it's still touching and healing so many people. And it's so great to see. And then at the end of that contract, that 2 seasons, they didn't renew it. I was fortunate to be one of the lead producers on the School of Greatness with Lewis House. And it was on that show that it really took me to the next level because I was able to learn how to run an eight-figure show. And I was doing everything. I was in the studio, shooting the photography, working on the guest prep, literally filming it, audio, transferring the footage, managing post production and really learning YouTube, and that was the biggest thing. Like I learned YouTube and helped grow their channel from it was getting like 1,000,000 downloads a week to 15,000,000 downloads a week in like a little bit less than a year. So I basically took that school of greatness and when I was around all these great people, I mean, obviously I'll be influenced by them as, an entrepreneur and a founder. And then I took that formula and built my company and really applied that to every show, big or small, and it helps all shows reach a level of success.
I love that, man. One of the things too that is interesting too is because and you touched on this, like the resilience needed to keep at this game, and like the resilience game in content. I had a guest come on last week, and he messaged me this morning because a company had reached out to him, and the company wasn't shady, but they were doing an interesting thing, and they were reaching out to older people who had written books and said, "Hey, we're gonna sign you to a book deal, to a deal to get distribution rights to your documentary." And they were doing all these documentaries for people. And when I reached out to him, he's like, "What is it? Talk to me about this." And I said, "Well, they've been flagged a couple times for like not necessarily doing what they say, but I said, "I wanna ask you this. What is it that you wanna do? Do you wanna have, like, one big documentary that you do or even a 15-minute documentary, or do you want to be, making regular content? Do you wanna be" he's like, I don't know what I want." And I said, "Then slow down, and slow down." Because at this point in time, like, this game, once you get into it, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to keep going. It takes a lot to maintain a podcast or a YouTube channel or any TikTok. It takes a lot of energy. And I wanna hear about from you about how do you find that resilience to keep showing up?
Whew, that is a good question. Um, for my people, for my team
Advice.
members, every deal that I do gets them work. I have team members all across the country, all across the world who are able to have these opportunities to support their lives off of something I have had the opportunity to create and give to them. So it first starts with my team. I love my team so much. I have had my editor Nathan for 4 years, working part time and full time, and it just goes back and forth depending on the deals. And he's beloved by all of our clients. And I've really seen him grow and shine. I have Omar, who's based in Egypt, who I worked with a different company, and just seeing him really dive in and working on some really huge shows with people is just a blessing to see. My producers, my executive team, that's been the biggest change this year. My CFO and new fractional COO and IT and business advisors, like they all support me. But at the end of the day, I do it for my people first, but then who's listening? So it's the lives that we're impacting. So for me, I could wake up stressed about like this, that, and the other. But what I do know is like go back to our mission statement is to facilitate
Yep.
meaningful conversations that promote healing and radical change. So when I shake it off, when I get my coffee, I do my workout or, just whatever, I know that at the end of the day, no matter how hard it is to make a show, somebody's going to be listening to that episode and they'll have the tools to, oh, this is what I should do to like ask my doctor the right questions. Like the first show that allowed me to go full time was with my cousin Shelly Banks with a show called C. We Do Have a Voice. So everybody before Jonah Platt, Gabby Reese, Heather and Terry Dubrow, like everybody was Shelly Turner who invested in me. And that show just allowed me to quit my full-time job at School of Greatness to go with it. And what was so interesting about it, I mean, she's a three-time breast cancer survivor, and the whole concept of the show that I helped make with her was, to share women's stories, specifically Black women's stories, because they're so disenfranchised with, the medical world and everything, to help them speak up for themselves by, sharing their voices. Like, I remember we had Ananda Lewis, the really famous VJ, on the show. She was stage 4 cancer. I met her in person. You would never know. And we have that interview. It's one of the last recorded interviews, that we have. And I remember when she passed, I was traveling and I saw it come up and I immediately started weeping. And that's when I knew the mission of the company. It was to share the stories of Ananda Lewis, for people to hear her story, and I'm getting emotional literally just talking about it because it's like she was so vibrant and she chose not to do the chemo because she wanted to live her, last years as thriving as she could, and although she passed way too early, we have a message from her that people can take and make the right decisions. And it just compounds on the over 30 shows that we've produced, and a lot of the different things from business advice to, yes, a lot of health, some comedies, and especially being Juice with Jonah Platt, like that show, we started from the ground up. And when I did season one, 30-minute Mentor show and helped launch season two with them, and that became the number one Jewish podcast in the world. Well, think about that, to make a show about private Jewish people in the last 3 years, what everything happened with October 7th to get to that level, the fact that me and my team were able to have a piece of that, like, be a part of that was great. I remember the episode 40 of season 1, Jonah started it off with a monologue. It was an interview with his mom, which was great, and he started off with a monologue, where he just, like, read the comments of people, and they were talking about how they, like, listen to the show, and now they are able to speak up in their communities and do all these things. That has real impact. So that's what gets me up every day. So with all the stuff that happened with my business last year, with a lot of operational and like all these things, I don't stop going because I know that this work has the impact on people's lives. So that's what gets me up every day. 12, 14-hour days, I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't have a life. I watch a TV show in like a year and a half and I don't care. One day I'll be able to. So
I understand that, man. Well, it leads me to ask a question like, you know, people wanna make great content, but, what actually makes content or a podcast good? Like, it might be fun, but what makes it impactful? Because I think you're touching on that a little bit as well. Like, something that has it's not just that it resonates, but has a purpose and has a mission, Sounds like what you're saying.
it at the end of the day, it comes down to the content. Like people like there's some channels that it's not crazy produced or expensive, but people love it. Like I remember I watched a show called Tiger Sisters and I had the opportunity to meet them. And when I saw their show, they were like filming it in their apartment and they edited it themselves. And it was just like raw, informative information for people. And it blew up to be one of the number one like business podcasts on Spotify. And now they've
Yeah.
elevated to an even higher level, which is amazing. Like, people just want to focus on the content, they're hungry for it. So when you start there, then you can build everything around it. So start with the content first. If you don't have a good idea that's gonna stand out, last out I saw, there were 840,000 active podcasts. It's probably a million. Well, how are you gonna stand out? Why should somebody care to listen, on their walks, on their drives, and everything? So first focus on that. Focus on the value that you're gonna bring people, focus on your why, and then figure out the production piece. You only have, you wanna do it yourselves, there's tons of resources to do it
Yep.
yourself. You wanna hire a company, well, start saving up. I remember I had the show called, The Peaches Podcast, and I was able to find this lead because I spoke at the, Black Atlanta Podcast Festival, and I did this course on getting started to make your own podcast. Well, Misha, she worked at, a retail job, saved up her money, and then, like, I helped her launch her show. She did that, like, that's amazing. She focused on the concept. We did it at, something, like, she was able to afford, and they were able to make a show. So, just really focus on the content, do it yourself. There's no barrier in podcast not to do it yourself, but do it well, don't waste your time.
Yes.
Watch YouTube videos, read the Mr. Beast manifesto, like, you can do it yourself, but if you want the resources, well, you can go to Rainbow Creative, but if you want the resources, you can, like, reach out to or with Sean's company or any company that works for
100%.
you, to help you do it to be the talent. But, focus on the content because at the end of the day, it's not worth your time to do it
Yes.
otherwise.
Right. The guy that team was reaching out to this morning had such a beautiful story. And I said, if you wanna tell your story, but find people that can help you tell your story authentically.
Mhm.
And, it's like you said, there are so many teams out there, dude, I love what you're putting out. And I know that for the people I work with, it's people that we resonate with. that have a story that we resonate with. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't take every single client. I want to get people that have stories that I'm because if we're putting in my team's putting in a ton of work on something, I want it to be something that I find powerful and I think the world needs to see. And I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't that not everyone should tell their story. Like, to tell your story, dude, everyone should have something to say, but doesn't mean that I'm the right fit for it too. And the thing is too, um, with those stories, like, if it's something that you wake up and you feel like you need to scream from a rooftop, find a way to tell that story. And there are so many ways that you can
And
do
do it
it, you
now.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
right? And I think that, my second question is, why do some podcasts blow up and others just sit there with no listeners? But, I think that we're kind of already answering that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, well, one is the content, but it comes down to consistency. I've had shows that I've tried to grow that haven't been consistent, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
I mean, there's only so much. There's not nothing I can do about that. We're really good at growing shows. But to
Yeah.
really get to the level of these top podcasters, like with Lewis, we were recording 6, sometimes more episodes a week,
Yeah.
releasing 2 videos, 4 audios a week. If you really want it, you have to commit to it and just try it. Try it for 6 months, try it for 3 months, try it for a year, and if it doesn't work, then what's the problem? Is the content the problem? You can figure out the problem. But if you stay consistent, you will succeed. Like, that's in
100%.
anything.
You have to be relentless. And that's why I tell people, like, people hire you not because we just know what we do. We do, but we should be hired because we'll keep you going and we'll help you
Exactly.
keep showing up. And,
Mhm.
and that's the thing. Like, you need to work with someone who's not just gonna make you a video. Anyone can make a video. There's a lot of people. I know high school kids that can make you a beautiful video. But you need to find people that can help you keep showing up because the consistency compounds. Consistency compounds. And,
And
like, if you keep
accountability is
going,
what you get out of it. Yeah.
right? I yesterday 4 podcast episodes filmed, today 5, tomorrow 5, Saturday 3. And, like, that's how I roll because I have 4 of my own podcasts. And people go, "Wow, that's a lot of work." And it's like, "It is." But I have a team that supports me. I schedule it so that I'm getting my exercise in, I'm at the gym, I schedule family time, I schedule my business time, I make sure I nap in the middle of the day, and, like, I'm
Clear.
just really regimented about it, because if you're not, like, you'll burn out, and I think that that's one of the things too that you have to find a way to balance it, But, like, I wanna ask you this because you've helped people not just start, not just grow, but succeed with podcasting, with media. If a person started a podcast tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd tell them not to mess up or just to do right?
Well, one, I would say don't overthink it. Because sometimes people get overthink it and then they get scared. So
100%.
I'd say, once you land on it, just go. And then when you
Yes.
watch it, adjust. So, like,
Yes.
what I would say is somebody starting, I would do, like, and we do this a lot for new shows, is like a pilot and a test episode, and then send it to some friends. They get some feedback, and send it to your friend who will call you out on bullshit or say something is bad. So send it to them first, and then also send it to your mom who's gonna love it. Like, send it to both, and then see what the feedback is. And if the feedback is good, don't shy away from it. Just try it again. Just keep on going. Stay curious. I think is the
Yes.
key thing when starting a podcast is you have to stay curious. And then also, it's not just starting the show, it goes back to the confidence in yourself. So when you're doing it, you know, just imposter syndrome and everything stops when you take action. So when you start like speaking up for yourself and like learning all those things and sharing your voice, what's stopping you from being the next best podcaster? Every single one of them started where you started. So I would
100%.
say, do a pilot, shop it around like with friends, do some research on how you can stand out, and then just go and just do it. And then if it stops, at least you tried because at
Right?
the end of the day, you're gonna regret it more so if you didn't try. But what if you try? And what if people see it? And what if you get a sponsor? And what if you land that guest? That what if can be a reality if you just start.
I love what you just said. My wife and um, I'm working on an album with her, and we have a
Nice.
new song. She's a famous singer here in Vietnam, and I hired one of my friends who's a songwriter in the U.S., who's an amazing songwriter in the U.S., not just a songwriter, but absolutely phenomenal songwriter, to write an album for her. And one of the songs is titled "What If."
Good.
And what if it all works out? What if it all works out, you know? And I think that one of the things too is that people go in nervous. And I think that those nerves shut people down. It clamps down your creativity. And you got to sit there. I mean, certainly, yes, a lot of podcasts don't get where they want to be. But what if it did? And if you can go into that inspiration of like, the other day, I had someone comment on my page and I was feeling really down. And the person commented, "Hey, the next Stephen Mitchell, everyone." And I was just like, you know, or Stephen Bartlett, not Stephen Mitchell. Stephen Mitchell's a great author. Stephen Bartlett. I was just like, wow, dude, that what a heck of a compliment. I felt blown away that someone would say that. And I was just like, wow. Thank you. I'm not Stephen Bartlett. He is Stephen Bartlett. I'm Sean Trace, and I'm happy being Sean Trace. But you know what? The idea of being able to be someone who inspires people is huge. And what if you became that next big person? It's there and you have the potential, but you got to put the steps in front of each other. And that leads to the next question because you talked about overthinking it. And I think one of the dangers is that people feel that they need to level up too fast. And I want to ask you, do people really need expensive gear to sound professional, or can they get away with something simple?
I've probably bought and had my clients buy Blue Yetis for the past 6 years, and they're,
Right.
like, probably on sale for $70 on Amazon. Step 1, you know?
So
Like, what is that? A nice dinner out on a weekend, you know? You can get a 2K camera, you can start recording on Riverside for 20 bucks a month. Like, it does not take a lot to do it, because remember, at the end of the day, it's the content, but you can get a good mic. You can get, like, a good camera. You can put some cool lights behind you. You probably have a lot of lights. How much are ring lights? $10 now or $20 now
yep,
on Amazon? You know, you put that little bit of effort in, then you're gonna be excited to record. Oh, you get to use your mic, you get to put on your ring light, and you get to do all these things. It doesn't take a lot. But you know, yes, it comes to story, but remember, you're competing against a lot of people. People will turn away if it looks like crap, no matter how good it is. Like I remember at one point, like I was listening to like some like a Smartless episode once, and Matthew McConaughey was in his car. The only reason why I listened to it was Matthew McConaughey, but if it was anybody else, I would have turned it off. So, it's like you can invest in the right equipment, and there's so many tools like, you know, Adobe Podcast, you can enhance something where,
yep,
like, it doesn't even sound like there's traffic. Descript is the most one of the most powerful tools in podcasting that can help you write your show notes, edit out the ums for you. You
right,
know, Riverside edits for you. They have a magic
yep,
episode where you literally just click a button and it edits it for you, even adding an
mm,
opening clip. There is no excuse. You know, there are so many tools at your disposal to do it well. You just have to find the resources to do it. And I just gave you the resources to script, Riverside, get a mic,
100%.
get going. So,
The assets are the tools are there. And I think that
yeah.
that's what I love to hear is just helping people find their voice. You just have to get out there and do it. Like you can totally do this yourself. And I think that one of the things that I tell people though is just be ready for growth.
Mhm.
And when growth comes along, there's going to be a time where I love one of the things that I love helping people do is I love helping YouTubers who've been doing it themselves, and they're just like, because we one of the focuses of my company, we do a lot of kids content because my daughter's
Sure.
YouTube channel, Ilani's Little World, we're doing a lot of great kids content, and these people that are just like, I'm tired of doing this myself, 30 hours a week and, just editing their own content, and they're like, "Man, it's not," and they're not seeing the numbers yet to make the financial return, and I'm just like, But, you can offload that and get some help with it." Then that's one of the things because when you start growing, people don't necessarily know how to do that, and I wanna ask you that because, like, what do most people get wrong about growing the podcast and growing their audience?
They think it's gonna happen overnight.
Right?
It's not. And then they also, I think they discount incremental growth. And then also, if they see 100 people, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a failure." But that's 100 people. Have you ever seen 100
Mhm.
people in a room? Imagine
Right?
100 people in a room listening to your podcast. And then
Right?
next time, 125, next time 150, and then on that 150, they'll go back to the first episode and they grow from there. And then you find it shorts. It's a burn, it's a slow burn, it could be a fast burn. Um, but you also get a lot of data. YouTube tells you where people are dropping off. It tells people where, they're spiking. It tells you how long they're listening, and then you can adjust from there. You just start it first. I mean, there's no like perfect length. The perfect length is the amount of time it takes you to like just have a good conversation. So I think what people get wrong about growing an audience is when they discount, like, even if you're getting 20 listeners, 100 listeners, 200 listeners, those are still 100, 200 people. They mean something. And I feel like a lot of times if they don't see growth overnight, especially like within the first month, they'll completely stop. But if you stay consistent, get continue to make your good content and look at the data that YouTube gives you and all these, even Apple gives you the resources of showing the average like consumption rate. When you look at that, you can inform how you do it ongoing. But I remember the beginning, Jonah's show, which now gets tens of thousands of views a week. It was getting a couple hundred when we started, and we just kept being consistent and looked at the data and kept on adjusting. You just have to continue to be consistent about it and don't feel discouraged if, 100 people are listening to your episode in the second month. That's 100 people, because it will grow if you just stay consistent about it. And then also the thing about benchmarks, especially when it comes to numbers, it's like, of course, 1,000,000 views is amazing, but also 20,000 views could be amazing for you. And, like,
Mhm.
what's that value you're getting out of that 20,000? If you're doing a show where you're a therapist or something, and out of those 20,000 views or even 500 views, you're getting leads, that's valuable leads. And you can continue to grow out of it. It's like the numbers and podcasts is really relative on your goals and your accomplishments. I mean, there is the benchmark of the amount of numbers it takes to get a CPM for it to make sense in sponsors. We do that a lot, obviously. But we have clients that are doing it for the passion and the love. And even those
Mhm.
shows are like really exploding a lot of times. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like they're doing it for the message, they're doing it for the 100 to 10,000 to 100,000 people. Like, I have a show called So Unique that, like, ebbs and flows, and one of the shows is, like, I think maybe at 180,000 at his 10th episode. Like, he just was consistent, you know? So, that's what I would say. Don't be discouraged. Stay consistent, and every view matters is what I would say.
I love that. I love that because every view does matter, and people don't think about this enough. Like, if you are reaching 1,000 people, that's awesome. If you're reaching 100,000, that's awesome. If you're reaching 10, that's awesome because those 10 people, you are impacting their life. They might
Mhm.
be showing up week after week and you don't even know it. And you're the one person that's keeping them going. You were the thing that is helping them saying, I'm going to keep showing up and I'm going to make this into something. And it's interesting to me because I wanna ask a question because I think I have an answer, but for that, is it more important to be entertaining or helpful when making your content? I have my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours.
I think it depends on, like, what you're doing. I think it should be a mix. Like, we have a new show called The Match Shrink with Dr. G launching, soon, and he's a 75-year-old, really accomplished, therapist and sorry, psychiatrist, and has a Substack and all these things, and a lot of his stuff is really just informative, but he has, like, a goofy edge to it. It's called The Match Shrink, and we have, like, spooky music, but it's informative. It's like I would say blend the 2 if as much as you can. Because if somebody's watching something, 'cause people watch YouTube more than television now, it has to be entertaining. But then there's also those moments where it can be informative, as well. Just don't have it be dry. So I think it just needs to have a entertainment factor, and the entertainment factor could be like my favorite podcast right now is Layla Hormozi's podcast Build, and it's just informative. When you watch the YouTube, there's so many amazing graphics that I'm learning from it. It's entertaining to me. So, and she adds fun stories and things like that. So, I would say add entertaining, like, because people like listening to humans, but just make sure it, like, fits within your market too.
I love that. I love that a lot, man. I think that you have to have a balance of both. If you're not
Mhm.
entertaining, people don't come back. But if you don't have a
Mhm.
soulful message, then they don't have a reason to stay. They don't have a reason to be there. And so I think that that balance is so important. Like, I want to ask you this too because what's everyone like a lot of people have podcasts, but like what's one thing that someone can do to instantly make their podcast better in your mind?
I would say add more elements to it. So there's a lot of creative things that you could do. I think maybe, being intentional about your music choice, for it, like maybe like I used to listen to What a Day, the news podcast, and was what I loved about that was the jingles when it got to certain areas. I was really excited about that when it came. So like add some like, I would say add some extra elements in audio and then in visual, I would add, like, extra elements there, so don't just have it be a talking head on the screen. If somebody mentions something, you can add images and things like that, do it, and then I would also say don't be afraid to be, like, creative and different. Like, I was watching, one of Jonah's episodes for season 2, and it was normally he's in studio, but he actually went to New York and, recorded, like, in a cafe with, um the owner of sorry, in a restaurant with the owner, and it felt like a like, a documentary. Like, that was really cool, and it was, like, different from a podcast, and I was, like, so enthralled by it. I'm so glad that he's doing that stuff. So, I would, like, also, like, you don't have to be talking heads. You can do, like, stuff on the street, where you just interview people as they come by, you can, ask audience questions. You can, come up with cool phrases and, like, even on Instagram, instead of it just being talking head clips all the time, like, add in fun things, build a community. So, I mean, that was actually the long answer to say, actually build a community with your show to stand out. Sure add all these elements, but if you find a way for community engagement, that's where it turns from show to cultural impact. And the biggest way that people find out about podcasts is one, listening to other podcasts, but word of mouth. That's how Navigating Narcissism really grew in its first, season. And, Ramani and Dr. Ramani and or Table Talk, yeah, it had a big platform, but I would be hearing from people that they found out because their person shared this and shared that and shared that, like, find community, and I remember one of the, top episodes we did the 1st season, and we ended up doing 4 of them the 2nd season, was, Ask Dr. Ramani on different topics where we had them the audience, because I was reading all the emails we were getting, answer their questions, so now people are invested in it. So I would, like, engage your audience. Maybe have one listener question a week, and then it gets excited about people coming. So those are some things that I would do.
I love that, man. I want to ask this as well. Like, how can people turn their podcast into something that makes money? Because I've had guests ask me that, and I know one or two methods, but like, I want to hear from you. Like, how can people start getting this into something that makes money, or should that not be a focus right away?
I mean, I would say, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're investing your time and money, you should be compensated back for it as soon as
Right.
possible, unless you just have a different, like, focus for it. But I'm gonna give you the Mojo Rainbow Creative secrets, like a different bunch of different like ways. So we're actually doing a bunch of Rainbow Creative originals, and our strategy with those is multi-tiered when it comes to the funding. So one of the thing we do is we make those like crazy affordably, so we don't have like a huge budget for sponsors to be able to make money back sooner. So I would say like as slim and good as you can for that. But our strategy is when we're launching one of these new shows, these clients make an initial investment, and then we actually start releasing it for like 1 or 2 months to get the 30 days and grow, so we can go to traditional advertisers, just with the numbers because you can't even have a conversation with them. Like all my advertisers and agencies I work with, at the end of the day, sure the brand approved, but what's your 30-day numbers, So like that's one thing. Like start releasing to get those 30-day numbers. So that's a traditional way. Another way, going back to community is community support. So we work with supporting cast for our new shows. And with that, The stats are if 500 people pay $5 a month, that's $2,500 a month that could go towards your
Yep.
show. So that's a revenue generator there. I would get on something like Megaphone, like with us, all of our shows are just automatically monetized on Megaphone. It's not like a ton, but it's just passive revenue that can just grow. That's a third tier. I would also, when you're going to sponsors, don't just go to the bigger sponsors because they're going to want big numbers and have they plan their budgets out sometimes towards a year. Go to local businesses. Go to local
Yeah.
businesses because there's probably they're maybe spending $2,000 on a newspaper ad. Well, what if you were to split that into three different episodes for ad placement and social media posts and everything like that? If you think about that, that $2,000 can have an impact on your show. But even further, instead of working with like a big company and you work with a local business, it also had more community impact for that local business. Instead of it being like maybe a 1% or 0.5% sale with a big business, you can maybe sell at a store if people really love it, local business. That's community impact and giving back and can help your show. And then I would also do and like with supporting cast, you could do like multi-tiered things. And then just like donors and friends and family, just say, hey, I have this big vision in my dream. Create like a 1 year or 3 year plan to say, you know, if you like invest in me, once I get sponsors, 15% return on, your $1,000 you give to me if you invest in me. Well, an angel investor is probably not going to expect a return on their $1,000. But if you write that and commit to it and you make that return, well, that's amazing. And then like you really commit to growth. So like there's so many different ways, you know, to do it and making money. But I would say not but going back, don't have that be the focus, have that be part of your business plan for the show. But again, go back to the content, go back to consistency, and then all those 5 things will just fall into place when you just stay consistent with it.
I love that, man. Well, where can people go and find out more about you and what you do?
So my website, rainbowcreative, .co is .co. You can view a lot of our shows. Our more recent ones that's just ongoing is Rainbow Creative underscore our Instagram. You can follow there. If you want to contact us, reach out to podcasts with an S at rainbowcreative.co. It'll go to me and my sales team and whoever just to talk about being a guest on some of our shows. We have, I think, close to 20 shows right now, like 10 active and another in production. There's going to be so many releases. I'm gonna be recording till my eyes pop out over the next couple of weeks, which is all I want to do. So, yeah. So I would yeah, so like follow us there. But like for us, we have opportunities to be guests on shows, lots of opportunities for sponsorships in our slate. And then of course we're taking clients all the time for shows. We do consultation. We've also just started doing audiobooks. We're releasing our first audiobook in a couple of months. So now we're in that space. We do design. You can reach out for that. So yeah, reach out to us at podcast at rainbowcreative.co. Follow us on Instagram. I'm Mojo Rainbow on Instagram. Post a lot of inspirational stuff and podcast stuff is all you'll see there. And sometimes dancing and lots of Beyonce. Anytime something Beyonce happens, there will be a post. Just know that. Um, so yeah, she's my favorite. So yeah.